We're gonna make another one of these bad boys.
Hey, I have a question.
Yeah, go for it.
Did you eat dinner before this?
No.
Okay,
Are you
good.
kidding
Okay,
me?
good. All right, good. I was thinking about it, and it's definitely a rule. Number 4 now.
Yes.
Officially rule number 4.
Right.
Okay.
And
I
one
almost
that you definitely broke.
No. Hang on. No, I was thinking about this actually. I'm glad you bring that up. I did not break it.
Okay.
At the time, it was not a rule. I basically was like, somebody that had their last meal.
Oh my gosh.
I snuck it in before the.
Okay.
So I'm good.
Well,
and it's a rule.
You're saying clean slate now.
Clean slate. Clean slate.
Clean slate now.
Yeah. Look at what I'm arguing. Yeah, it makes sense. I'm arguing for a clean slate.
But it's convincing. I get what you're saying. Yeah. Hey, I didn't know you can't get. Wasn't a rule until.
Wasn't a rule.
Yeah. I mean, we just decided.
Moments after I ate that sandwich.
Yeah, it was before.
Yeah.
All right.
Potato.
Welcome to the Morning Huddle, the Well-Built series. Chad Prinky alongside my good friend
Matt Verderama. What's up, everybody?
Thank you so much for tuning in and continuing to check out the kind of conversations that we have happening here. Before we dive into today's episode, which is going to be a lot of fun, we're just to refresh for folks who are tuning in for the first time. We have our show broken down into 4 components. The first thing we do is we just check in. It's nice.
Yep, it's just nice.
It feels good.
It does.
Then we get into an educational topic, something that we feel strongly about, that we've had the opportunity to watch the importance of that topic at work in the clients that we work with. We work at Well-Built Consulting. I feel like that doesn't get said ever, but that's an important piece of this puzzle. That's why it's called the Well-Built series. And we do is work with commercial construction companies. For the most part, I mean, there's a little couple non-commercial, couple, developer, yeah. Right? But for the most part, to keep it clean, we work with commercial construction companies, and we help them to build and execute their strategic business plans, which could literally touch every aspect of their business. And so we have this really cool, growing, diverse team of people with all kinds of backgrounds and experiences that they bring to the table, and we have just a front row seat to watching companies get better every day, and it's a pretty cool experience.
Yeah, it really is. It really is.
So anyway, we bring an educational component from that work, and something that we're watching in action make a positive impact. The third thing that we do is we get into just a knockdown, drag out, brutal fight. It's
Chad just beats me up once a month. But it's okay. It's helping. It's helping to get beat up by him. I'm learning.
But no, we argue a position on a thing, and that's always a lot of fun. And then the last thing we do is we share what we're reading lately, and for those of you who are readers, maybe spark something that you might want to get into, or definitely avoid, depending on our experience with the book.
That's a good point.
Yeah. So that's it. And for today, we're going to talk about putting client relationships before profit for our educational topic. And we're going to talk about should you or should you not hire a business development manager for your construction business in our XVY debate. But before we do that, as we said, how you doing, Matt?
Chad, I want to check with myself real quick on how I'm doing, because I don't know the answer at this.
Yeah, I'm gonna get a drink.
I'm going to take one breath in real quick. All right.
This is so on brand.
I'm doing very well. Solid weekend. I think I find that when I feel like I have time and space, that I feel really good. And this weekend I had time and space to do stuff around the house, do a little work and stay caught up. And then also have plenty of time with family and my wife and all of that stuff. So it being a Monday today and getting in a good day of work today felt really good. And just, I think I'm feeling grateful the more I talk about it. I think I'm feeling grateful right now.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Well, you killed it today from what I could tell.
Just out there doing the thing in your backyard. I spent the day at Chad's today, and it turns out we both talk loud. So
there can only be one inside.
Only be one, at least according to Mason, Chad's youngest son, who was like, "Please, both of you, don't be in here at the same time talking all loud.
I'm gonna need a break."
Yeah, I'm gonna need a break. So I hung out, on the deck. It was nice. I had a fan.
It was a nice day.
It was good. It was a beautiful day. So I'm doing very well. How are you doing?
I am excited and happy for my kids it's that time of year. It's that go back, back to school week. And today I have 3 boys. My youngest is 5, my middle is 10, and my oldest is 12. And so we had 3 kids having their first day back to school after summer, and 3 solid days, it would appear. And a wife that did not cry somehow.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, that's Wednesday is the day that the little one goes on the bus. That'll be the day.
I can't imagine what that feels like. Kid going
it is
on
an
the bus
awesome
for the
feeling.
first time, and
it is an awesome feeling. It's the first 2 was the first one was like, oh my God, and the second one was like, we're doing it again. But this last one, it's like, oh, last time.
Yeah.
Wow. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's but it's wonderful. It is a cool experience to watch the kids grow, my friend.
Yeah.
Soon enough, sir.
Even seeing Mason today from 9-10 months ago, like, he was such a little person today when I saw him.
Yeah.
It was, and it's the first time I've ever seen him not wearing pajamas, by the way. Yeah. So he's growing up.
He's growing up. He's got to go to school.
Yeah. He's got stuff to do, but that's really cool. That's really cool.
Thanks, man. Yeah. So yeah, I'm feeling excited and proud and sad and all those different things.
All the feelings.
Feel them.
No problem.
Yeah. It's nice. It is a really good thing.
Good.
Let's talk about the topic for today, which is putting client relationships before profit. I think in construction there are there's so much. Here's my take, man. There's so much downward pricing pressure, right? That's a long way of saying, like, margins are tight.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much downward pricing pressure on and margins have been compressed that contractors, I think, almost out of a sense of like survival, feel overwhelmingly the need to capitalize on every opportunity to make their money once a project starts. And that's, and look, I'm stereotyping a bit. That's by design. I'm just kind of providing a kind of lay of the land. And my message is, I get it. Like, I totally understand. I watched how low you had to get.
Yeah.
To get that job. I watched you sit there and do the math and say, we're gonna break even on the job. And so now, the opportunity has presented itself to make extra money, and I don't blame you. I get it. I understand what's going on. So I don't know. That's my take on the lay of the land. How do you view? You've been in the shoes of both the general contractor to some extent and as the subcontractor to a greater extent. How would you respond to my characterization, and how would you improve on that, from your experience?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think it's a good question. I think the first thing that came to mind is parallel to what you're describing of that downward pressure is also a general belief from subcontractors that general contractors are out to get them, and from general contractors that subs are not trustworthy and that you can't let them do their job without managing the crap out of them.
Right. And from owners that none of these bastards can be trusted.
Right. Exactly. Right. Contractors just have a bad rep in general with owners. So it is a really interesting dynamic that I think that there's a lot of subcontractors who don't even really think about their clients in context of being customers, and instead think about them as a necessary part of building the project.
I would say that's overwhelmingly true
Yeah.
when it comes to the staff, right?
Yeah.
Meaning the you know, the field employees, the
Yep.
foremen, the superintendents, the project managers. I think it's usually somewhere around the estimator that
Yeah.
there's a recognition that there is a customer.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, to some
Yeah.
extent, right?
Right.
Meaning the get work side of the house has at least some level of awareness that, like, you make it really hard on me when you make the
Right.
customer, when you make this entity mad.
Yep.
Right. But I completely agree with that assessment. I think that's, um so typical, so normal that we look at it as like, well, this is the what would you describe if it's not a customer? What's the right word?
The first one that comes to mind is adversary.
Right. I must go to war against
Right.
this person every
Yes.
day.
Right. Yeah. They're making us sign their contract. They made us take the job cheaper than we wanted to take it. They're telling me how many people I need to have on site.
That is so weird. Imagine going to the I'm sorry, I just made myself laugh. Imagine going to the grocery store
Yep.
and being like, gotta get this goddamn milk before these sons of bitches, whatever, like,
Yeah.
trip me on my
Yeah.
way out,
Yeah.
or like
Totally.
bash me over the head. Going to the barber and being like, you slimy like, what is this? This doesn't exist. I'm sure it exists somewhere else in our economy. I'd have to just like maybe the DMV. Right. Like, but
Yeah.
that it's almost like we cut that we're like, well, yeah, that's a governmental exchange. We
Yeah.
expect there to not be any customer service
Yep.
in that kind of environment. What the hell is going on
Yep.
in construction that creates I think that's the right word. That terribly, I think that's the right word, man.
Yeah. The adversarial
Yeah,
relationship. Yeah.
adversary.
Yeah. 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 And, I mean, from my experience in it, it really comes down, I think a lot of the time it comes down to a lack of perspective for both subs and GCs, and a lack of understanding. So for example, a subcontractor that is that works with a general contractor who is not a good client and isn't treating them well, and let's say they're a new project manager and all they've experienced in their first 2 years is a couple of clients that didn't treat them well, then they look at that narrow perspective and say, that's what's out there, is general contractors are out to get you. And I think from taking some accountability from like an office to field standpoint, I don't know that I don't know that most construction companies from the office communicating to the field like explain the complexities that go into these jobs beyond just we need to get done faster in a good enough way that actually allows the field to have some perspective that it's not really the general contractors that are always beating them over the head, but that there's these other factors at play that are going on. And so when you get those kinds of people mixing with people who don't have tons of experience, they're going to tell stories about people screwing them over. And most people have way more stories about a contractor or an owner, honestly, screwing them over than they do about the times that they helped them. And it just becomes the self-fulfilling prophecy that if you're looking for the times you get screwed over, you'll find them.
I love that as a synopsis and a theory of why it's going on. I I I completely agree. And as I get into root cause analysis, you saw me grab my remarkable as you were talking, right?
Yep.
As I get into root cause analysis, I think it's really down to one key driver on root cause, and that is the way companies allow their leaders to talk about their customers.
Oh, what a good. So talk more about that.
So, how often have you heard just contractors talking trash about their customers? Hell, at networking events, but let's leave that environment off the side and just say behind closed doors.
Yeah.
When they talk about their customers, is it in glowing terms or do they criticize them? Do they, right? Like, what's been your experience?
Yeah. No, I mean, most of the time it's criticized.
Right?
For sure.
They criticize, they complain, they're,
They don't get us. Yeah.
And there's, to your point about self-fulfilling prophecies, there's certainly that new person that all they've seen, may be a couple of really tough jobs. And so that's the perspective that they develop. But that new person, even if they're on 2 nice jobs, they probably work for somebody who is trash talking customers, even if it's not this customer.
Yep.
And it's about what you allow. How the kind of conversation about our customers that we allow will deeply shape the way that we think about our customers, and culturally the way, quote unquote, we think about, treat, and ultimately translates to how we treat our customers. People can tell when you don't like them, man. Even if you never say it, even if you sweet them to death, right? Like, people can tell.
Yep.
That you have a problem with them. And so one of the things that I would encourage our audience to get really aggressive about is to not first, round 1, root it out in your own language. Don't allow yourself to talk trash about your customers. I would even challenge you to not allow yourself to talk trash about your customers in your own head. Think good things about your customers, say good things about your customers, and treat your customers like this awesome person that you think they are and say they are. That would be round 1, because round 2 is not possible without round 1. Round 2 would be police it. Be kind, not judgmental or cruel,
Right.
but jump all over it when you hear it on the team. And even if you're listening to this and you're like, look, yeah, that all sounds well and good, but I'm an assistant project manager. I'm not anybody's boss. And when my boss starts doing that stuff, what am I supposed to do? Yell at him? And I would say, no. Remember, be kind and all that kind of stuff. You don't have to yell at him, but you could say, gosh, I found myself thinking the same thing about that customer, but then I realized that if they weren't here, I wouldn't have a job. So I've started to really come around. Right?
Oh, totally. Yeah.
And I think you can do those types of things, be a little funny, but also some of those things can like hit people right between the eyes without being rude, without being snarky, right? But have people go, yeah, that's a good point, buddy.
Yeah.
That's a good point. And I don't care where you are. If you're listening to this, I'm telling you, it's not helping you to think and say bad things about your customer.
Yep. Yeah, you said to me one time, and you've written some good articles about it. You're not allowed to hate the deal that you cut.
Gotta love the deal you cut.
Gotta love the deal that you cut. And this all, I think, goes into it in the context of, hey, you bid the job to them, you signed the contract.
Yep.
Don't get mad at them for
getting the best deal they could.
Yeah, right.
Don't get mad at people for asking you for money when you just gave them freaking money. You gave them money.
Yeah. And don't let it impact, if you don't like the way that they treat you. Here's I think what it comes down to too, when you get to this point of trying to shift your mindset on stuff. If you don't like the way that they treat you, it's certainly not going to serve the next 8 to 12 months of the project to have some kind of adversarial relationship. Beyond that, you get to make a business decision, which is, we will continue to work with this company because we actually are able to see the positive benefits of it. Or there are so many bad things and we've tried so hard to see the good that it's not worthwhile. working with
Right.
them
We're
anymore.
making a business decision to not work with them, but that doesn't mean we have to go around thinking and saying bad things about them. Hey,
Yep.
here's this really great company that we just can't seem to work effectively with, is a way healthier thing to say than here's this scumbag company that nobody should ever
Right.
work with.
Right.
And I guess what I'm really saying, particularly on that point, is that leaders set the tone, and everybody has an opportunity to set the tone too. But if dad allows it, or whatever, you
Yeah.
know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like if your authority figures allow that kind of talk, or worse, drive it themselves, that's what you're gonna get.
Yep.
And if you get that talk, you get that action. And if you get that action, you're stuck in a cycle, in this adversarial cycle. And then it's this really funny thing that always cracks me up, is like, all of our customers suck. Well, except for Mark.
Yeah. Right.
Mark's great.
Yeah.
We love Mark, right? And I'll always get into these funny conversations and be like, Mark, yeah, okay, got it. I guarantee you I can find 5 of Mark's service providers that hate Mark, that think Mark is a scumbag,
Yep.
and right, like that kind of stuff. But you love him. And over here, Michelle, that you think is the worst. Yeah, I promise I can find 5 people that think Michelle's amazing.
Yeah. That's a great point.
Most people are not. I mean, there's a small handful.
Right.
Maybe we'll do that show right before we close the doors.
Yeah.
If there's a small,
we'll name names.
we'll name names. There's a small handful that are really the problem. There really are, but the majority aren't. And anyway, so as we pull all of this into the focus of this educational point, putting the client relationship before your own profit. What to me, it boils down to, and this is what we really came up with when we were thinking about the episode, is, for example, when do you send a change order versus eating it?
Yep.
And that's the same question for a sub or a GC. It's they both have that question, of when to send the change order and when to eat that change.
Yep.
What's your take on that philosophy? Do you have a personal perspective on it?
Yeah, I do. There's actually some really interesting uh, uh, simulations they've run on game theory too that actually plays into this pretty well. But I believe in giving first, and the key in giving first is to tell the customer that you're giving them something.
Yeah. You
Like,
can't. Yeah, that's essential.
You have to do that.
Yep.
Because it just sets good expectations for you working together, that you're not just going to get pushed around and that you're going to have conversations about it, but that, hey, meanwhile, we're going to do it for you this time. And so I'm a huge believer in, and at least that first change, assuming it's not some significant thing that really is an owner change that's from a new set of drawings, whatever, and it's just something you're picking up in the field that is going to help the project keep moving. I'm a big fan of picking that up, making sure the client knows. And then really from every change order there afterwards, you just have to be willing to have the conversation with the client of how much we've already given, what you're expecting for us to have going forward from here. And just generally your parameters for wanting to be treated like partners, is that, hey, we're going to continue to do stuff for you as partners. And in order for us to do that, we've noticed that we're really ineffective at it when we're being treated like an enemy. And so if we're going to be partners with you, what we need in return is for you to be partners with us and be fair and kind and willing to give in return. Are you okay with that?
It's great. I love it. All those things, completely agree. I have one of my favorite philosophies. It's a Warren Buffett philosophy.
Mm.
And it is called being long-term greedy. That resonates with me because I am a vigorous capitalist, and I don't have any problem whatsoever with maximizing profitability, in all of its permutations, really. I mean, cutting overhead, great way to maximize profitability. Selling for more when you can, great way to maximize profitability. yeah, I'm probably the wrong person to talk to about price gouging, as an example. Like, hey man, if the market's there, get what you can get. But why I love the term long-term greedy is that it allows me to preserve my greed is good hunger, okay, to an extent. I don't believe that it's good overall for humans and all that kind of stuff. But for the economy, I'm not anti, the pursuit of that. You know what I mean? Um and it allows me to preserve this idea that I'm not doing things out of altruism. I'm not making economic decisions because I'm just a super nice guy. Right? I'm making good, smart economic decisions. A lot of being long-term greedy is being short-term generous and building a bridge that allows you to do business forever and making sure that you've earned enough trust that it makes doing business faster and easier and smoother, and that all of that translates into being more profitable. One of the things that I've found that particularly subcontractors deeply undervalue when it comes to profitability is the degree to which they are interrupted, bothered, redirected, told to remobilize multiple times, all these different types of things, which all happen when they don't have the GC's trust or the CM or whatever it is, right? But when they don't have their customers' trust, all of these things happen, and all of these things are extremely expensive. And those things could be avoided if you built some trust.
Yeah.
I would argue that even a somewhat expensive change order pays for itself if it's well timed, well placed, and this is a really big key, you're helping your customer.
Yeah.
To your point, like, I'm gonna do this one for you. They got to know they're getting something, but I'll add another rule, which is they've got to give a shit. It can't.
Oh, wow. That's really interesting.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then we could get into a whole different conversation, different day, like different contract methodologies and when GCs actually do reap a benefit for what you're saving them, or and when they
Sure, when
really
it's an
don't.
owner change versus
Right. Exactly. And whether they care to do business with that owner again, like those types of things, which again, there's philosophical things in there, but then there's also just straight up business things that are important to understand. But I'm a big believer in long-term greed, which is having the ability to reap the benefits of the seeds I'm sowing today forever.
Do you happen to have an example of a sub or GC that you've seen practice this that may help the listeners just believe that it's really possible and true?
Totally. And I'm going to use round numbers on this just for simple. So a trade contractor that I worked with for a long time. They were in the midst of so there was this GC that they did. It was a GC developer, which is an important piece of the puzzle here because they were the owner as well, and that's important. And they won about 1 in 10 jobs with the projects they pursued with these folks. Their average ticket, let's just call it, was 150,000.
Okay.
They went with 2 cheaper contractors 9 out of 10 times. They went with my client, the better contractor, who was more expensive, 1 out of 10 times. And it was even acknowledged. You guys are better. If we could afford you on every job, we'd bring you in on every job, but we can't afford you on every job. And we got, these 2 dum-dums that we use instead.
Yeah.
Right. Well, they hired one of the dum-dums and they did a terrible job on a project. It was such a bad job that they had paid them through the course of the job to install it, and they got about 70% ish into the job, and it all needed to be torn back out and redone. And that contractor was pitching a fit, and they weren't going to do it. And they couldn't staff it, and they were getting into a fight. And what really mattered was that it got done, like now. That it is this scope needed done.
Yeah.
And again, without more details, which I really just I'm not going to get into, but it's the type of trade that needs to be done quickly so that they can open. And so they were like, we just need it done. So they called my client and they were like, hey, this is an awkward one, but we didn't go with you. We hired Dum Dum and they are not getting it done. We need it torn out. We need it installed, and we need all that done within, some silly time frame. And they my client was I was literally there when all this happened. I was at their office, and they were like, there's no freaking way these guys can, they all the stuff, right? No, they never give us work.
Yep.
Screw them.
Yep.
We don't owe them a damn thing.
Yeah, right.
Kind of thing was all
We'll
that
do it
type
for
of stuff.
3 times whatever their budget is that they got left.
Exactly. They were like, here we go, we're gonna kill them. And I said, and it's exactly what I said to him. I said, look, you can kill them once, you can, right? You can kill them once. But is there a way to actually keep them forever here? Is there a play where we could do that, where we could keep them forever? And so it ended up having this really interesting, strategy, and it was a negotiation play. It wasn't just kindness, but what they came to him with. Oh, right. Sorry, I missed a big ask. The big ask from the customer was, we have no budget. Can you come in here and do this thing for not 150, but for what we have remaining? Which was like 70 grand or something like that. And they were like, what?
Yeah.
That's what really pissed everybody off.
Yeah.
And so I asked the key question. I said, okay, so you win 1 in 10 with these guys. How many they do a year? And again, rough numbers. I'm just for the sake of the story.
Yep.
They did 10 a year, right? So they did 10 a year. You win 1 out of 10. Every year you lose 9 out of 10. And so I asked just straight up. I said, what if you got 10 out of 10? And all it cost you was doing this job for 70 grand. Would you do it? Right? And they were like, well, yeah, that would be a great deal. And I was like, okay, what if you could do every job for the next 3 years? Like, well, this turns into just a no-brainer. And I said, so over time, this is like an absolute no-brainer, right? Okay, got it. I said, so what if instead of saying no, buzz off, good luck, we came to him and we said, we want to help. We can tell you're in a tough spot. We want to try to help you out on that. Flip side is, we're having a really hard time justifying it because we have not had an enduring relationship. So here's what we'd like to ask. We'd like to ask for a 2-year sole source contract. Open book. We'll show you how we get to our 150. We stick with our 150 number. You're not nickel and diming us, right? And we'll do it here. We'll open everything up. If we can agree to those terms, we'll come in, we'll do this deal at a loss, rip out everybody's stuff, put in our stuff. But we've got a sole source 2-year contract. And I can tell you what ended up happening, Matt, was not only did they secure the sole source 2-year contract, and they made great margins for 2 years and did 20 projects where they would have done 2. You with me? But on top of it, they built a long-lasting go-to partner relationship that endured way beyond the sole source contract.
Yeah. Wow.
Anyway, it's a long story, but to really paint the picture, that's the kind of long-term greedy I'm talking about. And it's the whole, there's 2 ways we can think about this. I can go and hit a grand slam right now, or I can just be rolling in doubles forever.
Yeah.
So
no, I think it's really interesting and good. And so coming back, and you might have been going this direction before I interrupted you with that question, but what's the simple rule, or what simple rules do contractors need to come back to when they're considering whether they should put the relationship before profit?
So number 1 is they got to know they're getting something. Number 2, they got to care. And number 3, I would actually go so far as to, you don't have to necessarily negotiate explicitly, because then I think you start to end up in maybe potentially tweaking people, rubbing people the wrong way. But I might have a conversation with them that sounded something like this, Matt, where I would say, hey, I want to be able to help you out. And I know that on this one, based on X and Y, you've told me that it would make an impact. Yeah. Okay. So I want you to know we would normally charge for it. And I want you to know, because you're asking me, because it matters, I'm willing to not charge you for it. But I also want you to know that the reason I'm doing it is I'm investing in a long-term relationship where we do this for each other.
Yep.
Are you comfortable with us doing this toward that relationship? And I'm not asking for anything in particular. I just want to know that we're building a partnership and we're not building something where, because look, at the end of the day, if you're not going to scratch my back, you know what I mean?
Totally.
Well,
Yeah.
then I'm gonna write you a bill.
Yeah. Yeah.
And those opportunities, like, those situations pose opportunities, and there's a right and wrong way to say everything that I just said, right? Like, there's definitely ways that you can rub people the wrong way. So it does require some good communication skills, some situational awareness, and the ability to apologize if you accidentally cross the line,
Yeah.
which is one of my greatest skills. Because I find the line so goddamn often.
Yeah.
I found that I'm awesome at apologizing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, when I cross it, but I think that's an essential part of being, successful in these types, converting what you're doing into the goodwill that you're actually aiming for.
I think that's such good advice. And just one thing that struck me as you were saying it is, in a lot of ways, rule number 3 is like, you don't put relationship over profit unless there's a relationship. And
Agreed.
as simple as it sounds, make sure that relationship exists.
Totally agree with you.
And if it doesn't, don't waste your time catering to a relationship that's not there.
Just remember this: you are being treated by your clients exactly how you allow yourself to be treated right now. Soak that in. So anything that you're complaining about, that's on you. That's what you're allowing. This is not, this is not a forced situation. You are accepting it. So take stock, change your own circumstances. And it can take some time. It's not, it's as you evaluate your clients and just kind of evaluate what behavior you don't like and what you've been allowing. Correcting that can take some time and take some new habit development. In some cases, it's going to require you to replace some customers.
Yeah.
That'll happen too.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
But a lot less often if you're good at this.
Yeah.
That's a part of my point is the majority of the people that you're working with that you are currently talking trash about are good for somebody. The difference is they're not allowing them to treat them the way that you're allowing them to treat them.
Yeah.
To you, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's great. It's great.
Fun.
Yeah, it is. It is.
So, Matt, let's fight.
All right, let's do it.
Enough of this agreeing. Should you hire a BD manager?
All right. Should you hire a BD manager? So,
sorry, I should start off by saying business development. When we say BD, some people just don't have exposure to that stuff. So,
yeah.
And when we say business development is the act of, really bringing in new relationships and maintaining existing relationships that can lead to business, either directly or indirectly. So, business development is an often misunderstood concept. And it does actually mean different things in different industries, which is a part of why it's misunderstood. In the construction industry, business development means developing and maintaining relationships with people who can help you to grow your business. So if you are a general contractor, business development might be directly with owners. That's the customer. But business development might also be with architects and engineers and bankers and leasing agents and brokers and blah 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 blah. All of these different people who may have the ability to help to funnel business your direction. So business developers, right? The whole concept of business development is what I just described. And so the question that we're posing here is, should a company hire a business development manager?
Yeah. So, yeah, and I'm glad you clarified all that different stuff. And there's a lot of different cultures in the construction industry. There are cultures where the estimators are cost estimators, and that's strictly it. There are cultures where the cost estimators are also building relationships. I think it's worth mentioning that one of the reasons why this question comes up a lot, I think, in our work, and people consider adding this business development manager position and are hesitant to do it, is because it is such a overhead position. This person is out there. They're not going to be billed to projects. Even if you're a sub who doesn't bill your PMs directly to projects or whatever, still this person is strictly an overhead role.
Yeah, they have nothing to do with the do work function.
Right, exactly. And then meanwhile, it's an extremely hard position to justify or maybe like clearly understand the return on investment. How much of that came through the company's reputation, the branding, what the estimator did, what the superintendent did on the last job. So it can be really difficult to manage. Meanwhile, all of those things, my personal belief system is that business development is a responsibility of every single person in the organization, and that the estimators are the closest ones to the uh, buying teams on the clients, and that it is going to take I'm going no business development manager on the team unless we have such a lack of people skills in our estimating department that it is so obvious that there's no way they're going to be building any relationships whatsoever.
So you're saying, if I've got you right, put the business development should be with the whole team, maybe with a primary focus on the estimating department, and we shouldn't have a business development manager unless we have a major problem in those areas.
Yep.
Got it. And so this is where you're wrong.
Yeah, cool.
This is where you're no, look, I as always, I think you make really well-reasoned points. So I'm not ripping apart the position, but I think my first issue would be when we use the term business development manager, defining what that ought to mean. Because where we agree completely is that relationship is, if I just bring it down to its essence, relationship development and maintenance is in the purview of every outward facing employee. I'm not going to put it on my controller. I'm not going to put that responsibility on my HR person, right? Okay, like because their customer is me. You know what I mean? Is the ops team, is the rest of the company.
It's that internal customer.
That's the internal customer. But every external facing person in the business, you and I are going to be in perfect agreement on that, and can have an episode on the rainbows and lollipops podcast where we but um when I think of the term business development manager, what I'm thinking of is the person who should be in charge, who should be leading that charge. And you know what? You need to have somebody leading that charge. Somebody has to lead that charge. They have to organize the troops. How many companies have you seen say, like, well, sales is everybody's job, but then nobody has a freaking plan? Right. And it's really lip service. Everybody says it and they're like, I'm in. But nobody knows what they're supposed to be doing. There's no accountability to what they're supposed to be doing. And therefore the project manager hasn't done a lick of business development this year, and neither is the estimator, and neither, right? Like, and so what do we get? We get no relationship development from this group of people, and we get no proactive relationship maintenance. We just do as best we can, and we hope that pays off out in the field. And that's what leaves contractors repeating last year over and over and over again. That's your recipe for stagnation. You need somebody building the plan, holding people accountable, giving them coaching and feedback, making sure that the team knows how to go out and perform this stuff. So if you're asking me if you need a business development manager, my answer is yes. What is their title? I have no clue.
I see where you're going here.
You say, yeah, maybe I'm winning on a technicality.
Yeah, well, based on, and if I'm understanding you correctly, like, and I think there is some validity to it, because the thought going through my mind during all of that is, okay, if you are a business owner listening to this right now, how do you identify when your company needs to hire that business development manager?
That standalone dedicated role.
And I think to your point, it's if you recognize, and tell me if I'm wrong, but it's if you recognize in your company that there's not somebody capable of managing that process, whether you call them a business development manager or not.
Fair. But I do have to say this. I'm a big fan of creating businesses that scale.
Yep.
And when I say businesses that scale, all I'm really talking about is that companies that have figured out how to reduce dependence on a key person or a handful of people, become more sort of process and system driven, and allow the org chart to kind of do the work for you, as opposed to rooting that work behind one key person. I give that background to say, what I have found, Matt, is that, so first off, the average contractor in the United States is a relatively small company.
Right.
And we're talking sub 100 for the majority, and sub 1,000 for almost all. You
Yep.
know what I mean? Like there are only so many thousand plus employee. Anyway, these are small businesses. And in these small businesses, what I found is that the people who really lead business development today, they're the founder.
So yeah. Yep.
They're the founder, they're the owner. And that person is the one leading the charge.
Yep.
And what I would submit to the audience is that works up until a point.
Yeah.
But at some point, you absolutely do need to hire a dedicated business development manager. They come in different shapes and sizes and titles. I've heard pre-construction director, and that person can be a business development manager when they're staffed correctly. I could totally see that as the person who is managing your business development team. But I also don't think there's anything in the world wrong with having a straight up business development manager. Now, here's what I have a problem with. And it's super common. I'm not mad about it. Let me be clear on this point. But the thing I don't like is that people are called business development manager, and what they actually are is business developer. And there's nothing. I love business developers, and you probably need to have one or more of those. But business developers are the people who are actually doing the doing. Like, they're out there networking and shaking hands and kissing babies, and meeting new potential customers, as well as referral sources for customers, and they're taking care of our existing customers. They're making sure that they feel loved. Big fan in the business developer role as well. Huge problem, like you're describing, with saying, well, bringing in business is their job.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's everybody's job, right? So while do I think that it's nice to have a fully dedicated person to it? I do. Do I somewhat prefer to have that work? I look, at the end of the day, I'm going to lose this XVY because you picked the right side.
Okay, got it. Cool. Wow, this is good
Well,
news.
here's my
It's really
point.
good news.
Is that at the end of the day, you're right. Like, none of this. If the question is, should I hire a business development manager because I need to grow? The answer is, like, probably not. Probably the thing you need to do is rally your troops and get everybody squared away so that they know how to go out and do this thing right now. If you are ready to have a fully dedicated business development manager managing that process, great. And same kind of deal with business development. It's like, don't hire a business developer because you can't.
Yeah.
This is a pretty fundamental skill.
Yeah. So how do you identify that shift from I'm going to say, and we're on the same page, but I'm going to say that it's culture of business development is first.
Yeah.
Then you hire the business development manager, if that's the right play.
Yeah.
But how do you identify when you go from the culture of business development being suitable to unsuitable, where you need to bring on somebody dedicated to business development, whether that's in a management role or...
Yeah, I think it has to do with how many hats the person who was managing it is now wearing.
Yep.
When the owner realizes that, and it may not, maybe too many hats is the wrong term, how much bandwidth they have for the job.
Yeah.
That's what I'm really trying to say, because it may be that they're taking off hats, but their CEO hat is getting really big, and they're spending a lot of time doing the CEO-y stuff, and they can't be really actually overseeing that anymore.
Yep.
Type of thing. But I think that's probably the breaking point at which you should say, okay, we need a dedicated resource for driving that. And contrary to popular belief, what you're looking for there is not the business developer extraordinaire. You're looking for a manager. You're looking for a people manager.
Yeah.
You're looking for somebody who can plan and organize and coach and hold people accountable. And, and yes, they should be able to practice what they preach. They should be capable as business developers, but you're not looking to hire somebody. You're not saying like, well, you should be out there every night. I'm like, dude, they're working. The people who should be out there every night, that like they should be hitting 40 hours while networking every night.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's the business developer. That's their job. Like, don't get mad at the BD for showing up at the office at 11. They're just getting sobered up from last night's party that that you had them at, right? Like, give them a break. Yeah. They're doing this give their liver a break.
Yeah.
They need those hours. But the business development manager is managing. They're building plans. They're managing people and participating as appropriate.
Yeah.
In the actual effort.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, it's interesting. I can't believe you're saying that, actually. I can't believe you're saying that the business development manager, one of their main responsibilities isn't to be out there. And I'm not necessarily saying that you're wrong. I just never consider that. What I'm thinking is you're wrong, but I'm not saying it because I'm still thinking about it. Because in my mind, I mean, if that's your role, I mean, we're already investing in that position. I mean, clearly we want you out there at networking events and doing what you do. Yeah, coordinating the team around them. But to me, that all goes into the job description. But
let me ask you this:
leading the charge.
Let me ask you this: if I had if you had to pick somebody who is an incredible business developer and an okay people leader and manager and organizer,
I like this question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or somebody who could get the absolute most out of a team of, say, 12 or 20 people, but they themselves weren't awesome at the thing, which would you take?
Okay. I'm imagining if I am an employee being told to go business develop by my business development manager who's not out there business developing. Man, I gotta tell you, I think I'd rather have the person who's out there hitting the pavement and getting in the offices and getting meetings, and I really do. And while I want them assisting the process, and maybe it's just because in my experience, I'll give this bias. Like, I was the vice president of pre-construction and sales,
right?
And I just think those things fall into that role too, of like organizing the team to go get work. Like, if you're in that type of position on the pre-construction side of the business, like, your job is to get work. So your job is to organize your people around getting work. And I view the business development person as another tool in your toolbox of being able to go get work.
I view them as another tool in the toolbox as well. And going back to my previous statement, I'm like, I was forcing a thing that I wouldn't want to have happen.
Yeah.
But where you'd have a business development manager who's not good at it. But I was forcing that to like create this clear, delineation choice just for the sake of discussion. But let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Do you want your operations director to be managing projects?
Oh man, what a great question. No.
Oh wait, that was fast.
Yeah, no, not
weird.
at all.
Wait,
yeah.
why?
Yeah. Well, this is really an interesting thought experiment. I don't want them doing that because their job is to manage oversee all the project managers that are running the projects.
Now I'm very confused.
Okay, keep going.
So you don't want the director of operations to be managing projects directly.
That's what I said. Yeah.
But that director of business development, they better be business developing directly.
Yeah. I could see why. I'm willing to say it's a false equivalency, on which I'm excited to use that term here today, because and I mean this because I believe there's less of a team.
There's less of a team of business developers,
and
I hear you.
Yeah, and there's more project managers reporting to that director of ops that's overseeing them. But I get your point.
But if the whole machine, if the whole company, if we want every one of those client facing people to be doing business development, would you agree that for a company that has 20 or 30 or 50, of those resources or more, that actually figuring out a kick-ass way to a kick-ass strategy,
Yeah.
doing the research, figuring out where they need to go,
Yeah.
arming them with the contacts and the people that they need to be targeting, teaching them how to go out and do that stuff,
Yep.
orchestrating that effort, managing, and then monitoring all the progress, documenting all the opportunities, managing the CRM.
Yeah.
It's a job.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not saying that they shouldn't be out at all. I'm
Yeah.
arguing against the idea that we need to be hiring people first on their own ability to business develop, and then like, oh, hey, and we'll toss in management. You need to be hiring people, if into that role, you need to be hiring people for their management ability.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, they need to have the credibility to be a business developer.
Yeah.
So that they can lead with integrity.
Cool. No, it's really interesting. I mean, you're changing the way that I think about that position, which is cool. Even if I don't fully agree, like that last, I really like this last part that you just said, which is so true, that you do need somebody who's like really holding the team accountable and keeping people organized. And the person who's best at business development is not always, and often not always, the best person at managing the business development process.
Exactly.
Because they're the ones that are fun and out there hitting the bar, and you need somebody that's making sure, are we getting our meetings?
And now I totally agree. And
that's interesting.
In big like Fortune 500 companies, by the way, oftentimes they call what I'm describing as kind of like sales enablement.
Yeah, gotcha.
It's like preparing your salespeople to be able to go out and do success. It's not construction, man. I don't need to waste anybody's time with sales enablement in this environment. There's a fraction of 1% of construction companies that should actually be looking at sales enablement.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The vast majority are nowhere near that kind of division of labor because of headcount. And all I'm saying is somebody should be able to marshal all of our resources and should be able to use those resources in relationship development and relationship maintenance for our company. And that the management of that is actually, in a way, depending on your size, again, we kind of talked about where's that trigger point, is more important than having a business developer. And I'm actually one company that I'm working with is actually in the midst of making that transition. They've been very reliant on a business developer. They've done an incredible job developing a team of people who are all capable in business development. And we're seeing that the need for business developer is actually much smaller than the need for the management.
Yeah, super cool.
Of the business development. So it also may be primacy and recency that I have the opinion I have.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it's good points. And one last question, and I know we've gotten here pretty good.
It's about an hour.
Yeah,
we want to be around about an hour.
Rule number one, it's about an hour. But I'm curious about your opinion about this. We've never talked about this before. Where do you see the business development manager's role ending in the sales process?
Yeah. So in my personal view, the person selling the job, actually selling it, shouldn't be the business developer or the business development manager. The person selling the job should be the person who is going to walk with that customer, in my view, should be the person who's going to walk with that customer through their relationship long term. And usually that is, again, depends on your business. Could be a project executive, it could be a project manager, it could be a pre-construction manager, it could be an estimator. Like at some point,
could be the founder.
Remember, the business development, as I described what it is, where in there did I say closing deals? Nowhere, right? Business development is building relationships and maintaining relationships, finding new ones and maintaining our existing ones. So what I love here's a little bonus round, a question you didn't ask, but that you didn't have a reason to ask, by the way. It's not like you, and -1 for Matt.
Yeah. For not asking this very specific question Chad's about to bring up. Okay, go ahead.
But what I like is when business development, the people who are involved in business, if you have those people, if you have a business developer or a business development manager, that a part of what gets considered is what role they're playing in customer satisfaction through the course of a project, which makes a lot of people very uncomfortable. But I very much like inserting this additional person who's all about the relationship into having discussions with the customer and say, hey, how are we doing for you? I know that these were the things that mattered to you at the beginning of the project. How are we doing in those areas? Is there any feedback I can bring back to our team? Is there anything that we can do for you? Because I'm telling you, that person who's just kind of like a concierge almost can come in, and you talk about what we talked about before in terms of building that customer relationship and putting that before profitability. They will oftentimes come back and say, guys, if we could just do X and Y with our cleanup, the customer will be so much happier with us. Let's come up with a game plan. And it can be a huge relationship game changer. Yeah, you don't have to have that third party do it.
Yeah,
you could do it yourself, and if you have a great relationship, it's easy, and they'll be honest with you. But just talking about different places for them to play in the process. But in the sales process, I want to hand off to the people who are responsible for winning the work.
You want them cross-trained in sales?
They certainly should be able to be a part of those meetings and be credible. So yeah, I want them cross-trained in sales, but I don't need them winning work independently.
Cool.
I don't want them winning work independently. Yeah. Frankly, they need a check on them, right? That's a part of the operational process. Like, hey, appreciate you bringing that one in, Sparky, but we're not interested.
Yeah, right.
Please don't sell that job.
Yeah.
Right. Sometimes that's a part of the business development, when there's people dedicated in that, they oftentimes don't have the, all the business and technical knowledge to know that it's a great deal or a bad deal.
Yeah. Yeah. Got it. Yeah. I've always felt like business developers could leave something to be desired on the sales front, and not even, and maybe sales is the wrong word as you're describing, the closing of the deal, but actually moving the deal forward. I think
because it revolves around tough questions.
Exactly. And I think that there is like a last 10% of that role that I've seen a lot of business developers who could get better at, who it shouldn't just be chill vibes and liking each other. Like that's a huge part of it is that. And you should be able to like get really clear understanding of like, how are they going to treat us on this job? When is it coming out for bid? Are we going to have last look opportunities for it? Why we should get those, before it even gets to the RFP process. So
different conversation, different day. Let's make sure we add to our topic list. I'd like to dive in to all of the different sort of stages of developing a relationship, then developing an opportunity, which are very different things.
Right.
And the business developer is what you're really talking about when you say the sale. How I would describe it is you're asking, what should the business developer's role be in developing an opportunity?
Yeah, I love that.
And
I think that is right.
And the answer is something for sure.
Yeah.
They definitely and developing the opportunity and being able to bring something back that doesn't smell.
Yeah.
Right. Being able to bring something back that everybody's not like, what the hell did you just bring
hit on the way?
Like,
in? Why'd you bring that in?
Mouse brings the
take that back outside.
Cat brings the dead mouse in.
No problem. It comes in all excited. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Get back outside with that thing. It's disgusting.
Yeah. Oh, the poor business developers listening to this one.
Well, it's tough gig.
Yeah,
it is a tough gig. That's on a whole bunch of other levels. That's it's a tenuous job. It's often a thankless job. It's a tough gig.
Yeah, it is.
What are you reading, buddy?
I am reading a couple of things, but the one top of mind right now is Sapiens by Yuval Harari.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, I forget how to, but it's a short history of humankind.
It's really good.
It's so interesting. It's such a zoom out. It takes like we're just animals. That's Homo sapiens are just animals. Sorry to burst anybody's bubble that doesn't realize that. And we're like the top of the food chain because we figured out how to tell stories and communicate verbally. Apparently, without a really good communication system, groups start to break down at something like 25 individuals or something. So even like primates can create these groups of 25 to 50, but beyond that, it gets extremely difficult to mobilize any of them towards a common goal. And the main thing separating humans from animals is that we're able to do that, which we can all believe in these bigger systems of government and politics and business, and that are really these imaginary concepts that are these visions that we all drive towards. And because of that, it's allowed us to thrive. And there's a lot of other good stuff in there, but it's just really interesting for the like context, that like there's so much more to us than the time we're on Earth, especially, but even like the 2,000 year, time frame that I think a lot of us think in from being in 2024. There's just so much more to us and how we got here.
Awesome. I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would like to talk to the author of that book about, just not that he would have like, I'm sure, any hard specific answer, but that I bet you he would have some wonderful insights into, okay, so this book is about this person's amazing research into how humans have evolved to the top of the food chain, so to speak, and how we've arrived where we are. What's it going to take to stay viable as a species in our current world? Because when you talk about organizing large groups, right, you take a topic like climate change, or you take a topic like poverty, or you take a topic like immigration. We can't freaking organize around the
Yeah.
thing. And I wonder if there's some message about our undoing, and how we can maybe tap into our more primal roots and just collectively gather. I love the movie Independence Day.
Oh my gosh, what a great movie.
It just jumped into my mind because like I feel like urgent existential threat. Oh shit, we all figured out how to work together. I mean,
I know.
and that's
so
what I
with
love
you.
about that
Yeah.
movie. It made me so happy.
Yeah.
And I think maybe that's just part of the problem with like slow moving crises.
Yeah.
Is that we're like, nah.
Yeah. When you're so right. And we start getting in arguments really more about like what the word means than like the conversation of like what we're actually trying to achieve. Like what climate change means. And it's like,
well, and we're all such suckers for an argument too. Like we can't just be like, I'll give you that.
Yeah.
Let's not argue that. We have to fight.
Yes.
As a species.
Yes.
We just have to. It's one of my favorite things to do is just to check to see how much of an asshole somebody is by doing or saying something incorrectly and seeing if they correct me.
Oh my gosh.
It's one of my games.
Oh my god.
So now everybody knows.
Yeah, I was gonna say I didn't know you played this.
Oh my god, I play this game all the time. I'll do something incorrectly and I'll see like, but I watch their body language and see if they're like, oh, I'm gonna kill that son, or what? Just and I'm sitting there like,
good test. Yeah, it's a good test.
All
right.
I got a big bozo smile on.
What are you reading, Chad?
It's a joke book.
Yeah.
I'm reading a book called Upheaval by Jared Diamond. It's interesting. We're reading things that are kind of in the same vein, which is, I find these things, and I wonder if you do. I bet you do. But I find these things so incredibly applicable to business. Even we're reading about, the history of the human species, so applicable to business, so applicable to how we can help people today in business. And Upheaval is by Jared Diamond. He's one of my favorite authors. I was introduced to him in college and I was like, oh no, a book I got to read. It was like a big, dense book. And I could not put it down. It's called Guns, Germs, and Steel. Yeah, cool. And ever since then, everything he puts out, I read, and this one came out in like 22 or something like that, and I hadn't gotten to it. And so it's about how humans respond to crisis as individuals and as nations. And I haven't gotten to the end yet where he lays out, he's almost the only caveat that I would say to Jared Diamond books is he writes a little like it's a textbook.
Okay.
He writes a little like it's he's like, in this chapter we will cover, and you know what I mean. And then so at the beginning of the book, he tells you essentially, hey, and then in the last two chapters, I'm going to tell you how I believe we should apply some of the things of how we handle crisis to American issues and worldwide issues.
Wow.
And like, here's what we're getting wrong and here's what we need to do different. So I'm excited about it. I think our clients encounter a crisis all the time, whether it's, oh man, we just lost that key person, or that project that we were counting on just got put on the shelf, or so on and so on. And I think already I'm seeing immediate applications for like big deep breath, here's how we need to handle crisis. and it's pretty awesome. I'll share one quick takeaway is the which is not going to be surprising to anybody, but that first key step is agreement that we are in a crisis
Wow. So just accepting it.
and saying, is this in fact a crisis?
Yeah.
Because if we can't agree that it's a crisis, and if it's with ourselves, we have to agree in our brain.
Yep.
Right? Like,
oh, this is so interesting.
Do I have a drinking problem? Am I overweight? Am I a good dad? You got to first decide and get off the damn fence.
Yep.
One way or the other, right? Because if you don't, then you won't address it.
Yeah.
And as a nation, or as a species, how do we create collective agreement that we are in a crisis?
Oh my gosh.
And that's our biggest problem.
Yeah. I was going to say, I don't know. Yeah. I'll have to read the book to find out.
Well,
that's a question I don't have.
I've not gotten to these chapters yet, but I'll posit a little bit of a theory, which is I think, I've been saying this since I was freaking 16 when I was getting into philosophical conversations with people. And I would always say, I got to tell you, we're so divided, right? Like everybody says that. But I swear to God, man, I talk to people from all different backgrounds, all walks, all different political spectrum, all that kind of stuff. And you know what I found is that we agree on almost freaking everything.
Yeah.
We agree on almost everything. We disagree on a very, very small number of things. And those things don't keep us from being friends. You know what I mean? Like we can work through almost anything as long as I suspend judgment and they do the same. Right. In those conversations. But here's the reason I bring it up is I think there's an incredibly small and incredibly loud portion of the population on any given issue that keeps us from agreeing that we're in a crisis. That's my theory. We'll see if Jared Diamond agrees.
Yeah. There's a vocal minority
that's very, very good at getting people at putting out their hardcore disagreement and then aligning it with like a bigger bubble that's easier to agree with. And then and essentially we just then retreat to our respective corners, whatever those corners are.
They're safe in those corners.
And that's where we're
natural to.
That's right. Which is also in Sapiens.
Yeah.
Right? Talking about how we cordon ourselves
off. The tribe
off.
is safe. The tribe is a very safe place to be. Being outside of the tribe is very unsafe.
I am always outside the tribe.
Yeah.
I feel so uncomfortable outside the tribe. I mean, it's but I think there are a growing number of people our age who actually maybe there's a tribe outside the tribe where we're looking at it like you guys are. You realize this isn't good, right?
Yeah.
Like you realize we can't even talk so I appreciate venues like we have here, Matt, where we can where you and I can have civil discourse where you can still beat me horribly in an XVY and I can be okay.
Yeah. That's grace right there.
Yeah.
Just a little grace for you today.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. I'll find a way to sabotage you.
Yeah. You're going to do something to see if I'm a jerk and find out that I'm a jerk. Dang it.
You've passed every time.
I got to be aware.
Thanks so much, guys. Appreciate you tuning in. Look forward to seeing you again next month for the Well Built series. And the regular version, the standard morning huddle, is coming back at the beginning of September. Hope that you're tuning in for that, where we are creating a platform for people who are creating positive change in the construction industry. Quick shout out and thanks to our sponsors, Katz Abosch. Thank you very much for your support. Want to say thank you to Lawrence Law, to Sandy Spring Bank, and to Marsh McLennan Agency. Thanks.